I thought we should start with just a short about your time in jungle. How did you end up as a backing vocalist in the band?
So when I graduated from acting school, a friend of mine, basically it was through a friend of a friend. So Fraser McCall, who was the bassist in Jungle, was friends and performed with Tom and Josh prior to Jungle becoming what it became. And yeah, so Fraser asked me if I was interested in doing some vocals for this new band. And yeah, I said I was interested. I really liked the music. And then after, a few rehearsals and a few months of doing really low key shows, Jungle just kind of took a world of its own and then, yeah, kind of exploded, I guess.
What would you say is your best memory from the time in jungle?
My best memory, ooh, there's quite a few, but I would say definitely touring South America. Touring in general, I really loved. Um, and I guess, the headline shows like Alexandra Palace and Brixton Academy in London and Glastonbury.
Cool. Well, it's a great band, and I'm looking forward to their next album in a couple of weeks, I guess.
Yeah, it should
So,
be good. Yeah,
yeah.
comes out soon.
You were part in the band until the live set up for the band until quite recently. When did you feel it was the right moment to kick off your personal career as a singer and an artist?
Um, I'd been thinking about it for a while, but I think for my own growth as an artist, I needed to step away. And I also felt, to be quite honest, as a few other members of the band did, that we weren't really, there was a sense of like our image getting used um, in an exploitative way. And
Oh,
so it was all ended quite amicably, and we're all still friendly with each other. But it got to the point where me and one other member of the band, quite specifically Rudy, who's the other person of color in the band, felt as if our image as people of color in the band was getting exploited. So yeah, I mean, I think it's time for me to just be quite honest about the reasons why I left rather than sugarcoating it. But Jungle are a great band and they make amazing music, and I've um, learned so much along the way and gained so much experience and a sense of musicianship. But when it comes to my own artist integrity as a queer artist of color, it definitely felt like it was the right time to come away from that. And I was doing my own solo stuff before and during Jungle, and it got to the point where it kind of felt it was put across as an ultimatum: either be in Jungle be in Jungle and don't do Andro, or do Andro and leave Jungle. So I took my own path.
well, you can control your own destiny by yourself, I guess, in that way. But
Absolutely.
when you're talking about the diversity, how how much is that in Great Britain for being a person of color in the industry, music industry overall? How is that working for the artists today?
Um, I think it could definitely be better. I think there's a very certain niche that artists of color in this country are kind of boxed into, and that's either R&B or grime in the UK. Whereas, um, I guess for me as a pop artist, there are no other um, queer artists of pop. I mean, the only other ones that I can really think of are Emanike. And apart from him, there's no one else who is like me in the industry, especially from a northern demographic who's queer and also black mixed. So I think in terms of the pop world and the rock punk world, it could definitely be better. But also, there is a duo called Nova Twins who are, a great pop punk band who are really riding the wave at the moment. And um, the both of us actually, they were on the year one, but I was on the year two. Were awarded PRS Power Up funding to champion artists of color in the UK industry. So that's one of the main reasons, as well as Help Musicians Fund, as to why I was able to create this EP.
Now, tell me about that project, because the Power Ups sounded very interesting. A way to boost other artists and help other artists achieve something. How did they start with this foundation? Do you know that?
Yeah, I think it was this is the second year that they've done it, and it's going to be running, I think, for 10 years. So it was a few people who are within the PRS organization kind of saw that there was a lack of diversity in the music industry, in the UK music industry, for artists of color. And that could be going from just artists being championed to a certain level of success, and all of the inner workings of the music industry, whether that's labels or PR and marketing and live shows, etc., and crew and businesses as well, black run businesses. So yeah, I think a few people within the PRS organization saw that there was a lack here, and wanted to start this funding for not just artists of color, but also business entrepreneurs.
Let's talk about the EP a little bit. The theme of the EP was conflicts, hence the name. How did you land in that theme?
I think especially after lockdown, I was noticing a shift in my relationships, and whether that was romantic or familial, or the relationship with myself. And I was writing quite a lot at the time, and I was working with one of my main collaborators, Matthias Bowman, who is amazing and also Swedish. And and also working with my other friend, Million Miles, on the EP. And yeah, I just kind of was writing a bunch of songs and stuff, and the ones that kind of fit and gelled together were when I was focusing on the relationships of my past and my present and my future. And with Natural, the first song on the EP, that was basically about my present relationships with myself, but also my romantic relationships, and how I navigate them. And then I wrote Physical, which was written with Hannah Yardi and Courage. And that was about my past relationships with my family. And then there was New Home, which was a relationship with myself and my future self, and how I navigate myself in the industry and my relationship with the industry and stuff. So yeah, I just felt like all of those things were the conflicts that we endure throughout our lives. And there always seems to be a conflict happening in any relationship. And I think over the past year or two, I've really been delving into relationship psychology in general, and just like how we navigate conflict spiritually and mentally.
Or just avoid them, as in here in Sweden, we are very good at that. So, yeah.
Yeah.
But I mean, it's always good to go heads on in it. But I'm very interested in the song Physical.
Mm-hmm.
I understand it's about abuse. Can you feel comfortable in telling me about the background of the song? Because I think that the lyrics is very powerful.
Yeah, for sure. I basically just wrote the song. When I was writing it with Hannah, I wanted to capture my experience of when I used to witness my mum and dad fight. And obviously, I was very young when that happened. And I just wanted to kind of explore how that affected me, how that affected me now, and how that affects my relationships currently and going forward. So yeah, it was also just about stepping outside of that and witnessing it, and also, not putting any blame on my parents, because they come from a certain demographic, and whether they were arguing or fighting about money or personal relations and stuff, like all of those things are still very human. And yeah, it was really about how I become or have become the cycle breaker in my family, in terms of not repeating old patterns from what my parents kind of experienced. Hope that answers your question.
It did. Thank you. I'm also curious about new home. You said in the press release that finding your space in the world, the industry, and also facing homelessness. I was a bit curious about that last phrase, homelessness. What do you mean about that?
Yeah, so right at the end of 2021, I had to leave where I was currently living in London, and it was someone that I've been for a while and felt so at home. And I had to leave that property, and I was just faced with this dilemma of, post lockdown, and also leaving jungle and embarking on my solo career and stuff. And also just work in the music and acting industry just being very tight at the moment. Um, Even though at the same time, post the Black Lives Matter movement, it seemed to kind of open up, but at the same time, it became even more competitive than it was in the beginning. So yeah, I was kind of faced with the urgency of finding somewhere else to live. So once I moved out of that place, I was basically sofa surfing for several months. And because I'm a self-employed musician, I was finding it hard to get a regular job because I've not had any experience. Because as soon as I graduated drama school, I was basically touring with a really successful band for 6, 7 years. So that wasn't, my skills weren't exactly beneficial to most normal jobs. Um, and yeah, so I was kind of sofa surfing for quite a long time, and that had a severe impact on my mental health. And also just trying to, because I'd already released that my first EP, Mortal, and I was working on the second one with such a lack of funds to be up to basically. Um, I was I was just finding myself imminently like I'm going to be on the street if like something doesn't happen. So that was a really scary moment for me. That happened round about Christmas time, and then early 2022. And then yeah, so it was kind of, I was talking about that whole aspect of it, and trying to find my place and my home within the industry as a northern queer artist of color. And always trying to like fight against the grain, because as much as I think that I'm at an advantage because there's no one else like me in the industry right now, it also puts a massive amount of pressure, and also in a sense maybe a disadvantage, because people might not really understand or can see where I fit in the industry. So yeah, it was a kind of concoction of those two things.
Do you feel more like home today?
I do feel more at home today because of this, especially because of this EP and the reception that I've had from it. Um, and I just know that regardless, like I always write from like the heart. I always write from a place of like sincerity, and nothing bad to say about other artists who are releasing music that is very much like, you know, what I call quite superficial about, going to the club and dancing and whatever. Well, those things are great. Um, I really like to just write things that people can, you know, I like to make an impact emotionally, and that's always how it has been for me. Um, and I still intend to do that with my next debut album. But I do also intend to make those songs way more upbeat for people to dance to, but I still want to hold that sincerity and depth within my writing.
Last question is the cover art of your singles and also the EP. When you are split in two, is that part of the conflict theme that you're working on, or how did you work on the aesthetic?
Yeah, I always had the idea of this kind of duality between the conflicts that we endure. So I wanted to capture, um, you know, two emotions in the picture because I felt like one pose or one image didn't really encapture the duality that I'm talking about in the songs, and all of the songs have a duality in terms of that conflict. Um, whether that's with myself and my parents, or myself and another partner, or myself and my friends, myself in the industry. So yeah, there was always going to be that kind of split um, image that came together to show the polarization or contrast of the conflict.